So even though I'm like 95% convinced that CHUCHU'S hair is just mostly air and that's how the puffs work, I mean, there's questions to be had about how in the actual hell does she get a helmet on, let alone the hair operating the way that it did. But I think Homegirl definitely proved herself when that punch came in. That was probably the most satisfying punch I've seen in a hot minute. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with said punch. It's not specifically just because Suletta was crying, but I mean, I'm gonna relate it to exclusively that just for the satisfaction. But there's a lot of, like, hostility, the Spacians, the Earthians, right? There's always, in Gundam fashion, there's that wedge, there's that discrimination. That's basically what Gundam's built on, and depending on the anime, that's, you'll focus on one over the other. The thing that makes it so good is, like, every time you have a character like Suletta who is nervous, doesn't have that much confidence, and clearly has no interest really doing anything but from being thrown in here because mom has her revenge-driven mission, to also just, she's now the #1 star. She has to wear a special uniform, she has to be treated differently, and she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. The thing that makes a character like her work or fail massively is the supporting cast around her as that character builds her confidence. If the supporting cast is mediocre, or you don't really find them that entertaining at the very least, then all you're left with is a character with no self-esteem, and is shivering and quivering. And unlike a lot of people who will say, oh, Suletta just needs to grow a pair, and she needs to just get a backbone, hell no, she comes from a completely different way of life, and has now been tossed in a situation where mama's manipulating for revenge. Like, she's nervous for a reason, and she definitely has some demons in her closet from her childhood as seen by the prologue. How much she remembers obviously remains to be seen, but probably not a hell of a lot. So by having a show like Gundam Mercury here, where literally the entire cast has something that's entertainment in terms of value, right? You have, obviously, the whole, like, oh my god, is this girl gonna become a harem protagonist with, marriage proposals? Obviously, he quickly is trying to renegotiate what that marriage means, and given the fact that literally this girl has proven herself 2 times and broke the systems at play, like, it's no surprise that he's trying to just go along with her, because it's not because of love or falling in love, it's more so, this girl's breaking everything that I know, and I want to follow her. Most importantly, if it makes your dad mad and your dad's that much of a piece of shit, it's no surprise you want to hang with her when it seems like she's about to break the system down. But I like the fact that rather than it just being a lot of characters immediately in love with her, like a harem protagonist, that really wouldn't fit Gundam. But by placing them in the school and having different reasons for why characters want to be engaged to Suletta, Miriam wants to escape, wants to not have more marriage proposals towards her, she works as a good way to stop that. Then you have, obviously, the duel last week. But each of these characters they're interesting. They all have their motivations for why they want to be connected to her. And I think in doing so, it makes Suletta's overcoming her nervousness, her sheltered lifestyle, it doesn't feel annoying to me because the show as a whole is entertaining. And by keeping the show as a whole entertaining, you in return make it so Suletta never comes across as goddamn rip your hair out, bash your head in the wall. And for an episode that was hardly any action, I mean, the most action you saw was there was a political protests and guns were drawn. They were launching grenades. At first I thought they were launching grenades to explode civilians. I was like, god damn, they're really kicking off the brutality right away here. But instead, no, it was like knockout gas or just gas in general, smoke, something like that. And then of course you have the training exercise with them crossing the minefield. Nothing crazy for action, and if anything, it was a slower setup slice of life episode. But this shit still had my eyes glued to the screen, and I was cracking up a few times. Like, literally, there was some good jokes in this, and just situational moments where I was like, god damn, I needed to rewind and obviously rewatch, especially that punch. And I was actually surprised by how it wasn't in typical anime fashion. Think about it, right? How many anime have you seen where a character got a well-earned fist to the face? Doesn't happen often, but you can think of some moments more than likely, right? But how many times does it then continue past that? Usually it's like, oh, you hit me in the face? And then it just, they get broken apart. Suletta comes in, tries to push them away, gets hit in the face, and just literally by the end of that, people were literally bruised and beaten. And I was like, god damn, Gundam Mercury's actually having some fun here with this. And That's what I like about it, is that it really does feel like you're getting to know the characters before shit hits the fan in a very bloody and negative way. I actually thought the best part of this episode was the protest in terms of seeing just what's going on beyond the school, and you know that eventually is going to reach the school at some point, whether exactly those protesters, probably not, but you know for a fact, like, it's gonna break up into factions. I think it's, in my opinion anyway, you know, you have right now Suletta's mother basically playing nice, but eventually is going to get her revenge, using her daughter to propel her motivations. I think at some point the kids are going to become their own faction, and then within the adults, there's already two groups that are secretly trying to kill each other or overthrow each other. So I think it's going to be like a triangle of who's attacking who. And Suletta's nervousness, I've talked about it in the comments, and I think I've talked about it in videos as well, maybe not as in-depth as I'm about to go, but the concept of her stuttering and her nervousness, eventually there's going to come a point, and I think that point's going to happen when she realizes that her mother has been using her for personal gain for revenge. Not to say her mother hates her or doesn't love her, but she is clearly driven by revenge and is using her to get to where she needs to be. And I think that's going to be the point when Suletta stops being nervous, stops feeling like she's just someone going with the flow, and standing up for herself. And I think that's going to be a really great character moment. I don't expect it this season. I do expect this core will end with some form of cliffhanger that then will lead into the next core, as we know it is a split core, right? But it's going to be interesting, right? I think this episode does a great job at opening the school up more, showing the different sides, and showing just how even a character like Suletta, who was in good terms with some of these students who get discriminated against because of how they were born, even they naturally push back against her now that she has the fancy new outfit because she's the queen of the castle, right? Like, I still think this is one of this season's best anime. We're now 4 episodes in, 5 if you include the prologue, which is kind of insane to think that we've been watching this show for a month, because it really feels like it just got started, right? And that's another reason why I would be shocked if this is only a split core, because Gundam always runs like 50 episodes, right? Like, that's just the Gundam formula that we're used to. The big difference is that it's a split core, so we're getting 12 or 13 episodes now, season break, get the next batch. It really does feel like this is going to be mostly a setup with some good battles, some good, probably shocking moments. I wouldn't be surprised if some big political figures get killed this core, but I think core 2 is when shit's really going to start hitting the fan, and then by the end of core 2, if they do plan to do a 3rd and 4th core, I think that's when the school stuff will really shatter and characters will separate into a more typical Gundam War story. Or at least that's how it feels from what I've seen of Gundam before, but also based on how the pacing's being handled over these 4 episodes, that just feels like the perfect outcome for a show like this, but only time will tell. Like I said, I'm loving the characters. CHUCHU motherfucker, that's how it feels, right? The girl came in swinging with her goddamn punch, but it's great. I'm loving this one. It's just fun to talk about, and I'm interested to hear, because there were some good theories last week, and I think in general Gundam crafts some good theories with the fandom, so if you got any ideas on where we're going to go from here, or just want to hype up that punch, let me know down below in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoy, and subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.